So, welcome to the Fortinus Events podcast series, where we connect with visionary leaders shaping the world of human resource. I'm Sabesha, your host for this episode, and today's conversation focuses on a topic not actually it's never been more important when it comes to organizations, especially today, when it comes to building resilient leaders in an increasingly complex world of work. So we're joined by two leaders from partner organizations that approach this challenge from complementary angles: mental well-being and leadership development. Joining us today, Yuri Marshall, the CEO of Mind You, and Jackie Cañiza, COO and Managing Director at Mind You, and also the founding partner, leadership and life coach at Haraya Coaching. Both organizations are the gold sponsors at our valued partners of the second annual CHRO and HR Leader Summit Philippines 2026. So before we even get into the whole conversation, I just would like if you could begin with a quick introduction first. So Yuri, if you don't mind taking us off, if you could introduce yourself and a little bit about Mind You as well.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Yuri Marshall. I'm the CEO of Mind You, as you mentioned. My background actually is in the legal industry. However, just over 5 years ago, I had a near-life experience. So I'm a suicide survivor, and that really pivoted my professional interests and just life purpose towards mental health. And so Mind You now is dedicated towards supporting people's mental health in the workplace, which is where the majority of stressors are coming from for most people. We're dedicated towards really providing continuity of care and a very special type of human-centered design for people that interact with us.
Wow, awesome. Coming from the horse's mouth, I'm sorry, but it's like this is definitely something I really want to get into after this. But thanks, Yuri, for that introduction. Jackie, over to you. Just a little bit about yourself and your dual role for both organizations.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sabisha. So my background is in human resources. I was in HR in corporate for a couple of decades and left that sphere about a decade ago. And so that's when I founded Haraya Coaching. And throughout the journey, we've worked with a lot of leaders, a lot of organizations, and that kind of led me to meeting Yuri and Mind You, because there is that kind of shared space that we work in, right? And so a lot of the needs started coming up from there, and that's how I joined Mind You. My personal background is in psychology, in neuroscience. So I do have a fascination and a very, very keen interest in how humanity is shaped and how our brains work and how our nervous system responds to the experiences that we go through. So that kind of helps to shape my role both in Haraya and in Mind You as well. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
Okay, perfect. So one is from a legal background, the other one, neuroscience, the whole thing coming together. It's sort of like a perfect balance, I would say, right? So I'm just going to go into the first question. So Mind You and Haraya Coaching have distinct but complementary missions. So mental health support and also leadership development. How would you, describe this partnership? How did it begin? And what shared goals have brought the organizations together? If Jackie, would you like to take the question first on?
Yeah, sure. And from the Haraya experience, we work with a lot of leaders as well as team members across the organization on different levels, right? And what we started to notice in the last number of years is a growing and emerging theme that people were bringing to their coaching sessions. And it wasn't just about managing career or managing their goals or habits. A lot of the themes started to come through in relation to mental well-being and setting boundaries and taking care of oneself in the workplace. And so because of that emerging theme, we felt the need to address that. And we also acknowledge that there are certain spaces that coaches don't have license to go to, right? So we knew and recognized that we needed to work with a partner that could address those specifically and much more directly, and who are much more qualified. And I guess that's, how when we came across the work of Mind You, we have very similar values, very similar advocacies,
Right.
wanting to create better workplaces for people, and so it really worked from that standpoint. We found there was a very good fit from the get-go, and providing complementary services, as you said, just made a lot of sense
Right.
because of that emerging theme.
Right. Awesome. Yuri, what's your take on that?
Yeah, me on the flip side
Yep.
of the other coin, we deal with teletherapy, psychology sessions. And often what we find is once someone does move from that place of chronic illness and they start to heal, they start to get better, psychological therapy needs to be augmented or supported by coaching, right? And the reason I guess we partnered with Haraya is because there wasn't just the ICF competence based coaching, there was this additional human-centered design, which is very important to our values, right? We don't want to provide, dry coaching or just standard therapy. We really want to create an experience where people can build awareness, they can develop their level of consciousness, and they can really take control of their lives and different areas. Coaching is where you can now look at thriving, right? Whereas mental health, you're really trying to deal with trauma, those painful moments in life, and that's suffering, I would guess, if you wanted to just create this umbrella. We take people from there into the positive psychology realm, which is where Haraya and coaching comes in.
Makes sense. I mean, you definitely need a little bit of both, one to sort of personally go through that whole, get it out of your system. And then also, how do you go from there? What's next step? I'm guessing that, right? That's basically how it goes.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So when it comes to building a culture in organizations, right, where your psychological safety, your performance, and people growth can genuinely coexist. So how would, Mind You and Haraya come into play when it comes to something like this? Yuri, you want to take us off on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think from the Mind You side, we're very pragmatic. And I think that comes from myself being just a practical guy.
Yeah.
When I think about building culture, I don't think about policy making or changing your values on the website. I think about what's actually happening on the ground with the staff. And so for Mind You, it's all about creating support channels and an immersive system where people can call a hotline, a 24/7 hotline, and it's responsible, it's accountable, it's private, it's confidential, it's founded on information systems and a patient care model, right? So we have the hotline, we've got teletherapy that you can book on demand. You don't have to go to your HR to get the teletherapy,
Okay.
right? That's the other stigma, is you don't have to tell your HR that you want support, because that's actually one of the fear barriers for support. And then we have other channels, mood tracking, guided journaling, self-help education, an anonymous community forum, because the evidence shows if you can give people support options, the probability of them engaging in help-seeking behavior increases.
Right.
But it has to be confidential.
Yeah.
Has to be safe, and the stigma barriers have to be lowered. So for me, it's all about practical engagement on the ground, not just policy making.
Makes a lot of sense. Your vision, mission, I mean, yes, it's always there, but what are we doing about the vision and mission, right? Yeah. Okay, I understand. Jackie, what about,
Yeah,
You.
when we think about cultures, we're really talking about what are the stories that people tell when they're in the organization and when they talk about the organization to people they know, right? It really is about the behaviors that you see in the workplace, the habits that are formed in the workplace, versus just the perhaps the vision or mission you put on a wall or on your poster, right? So it is about what's happening on the ground. And when we think about what's happening on the ground as it relates to psychological safety, that is about relationships that leaders have with their team members, the kind of environment that a leader creates so that people feel like, yes, I can speak up. Yes, I can create these boundaries for myself. Yes, I feel taken care of by the organization and by my leader, right? When organizations ignore the reality of mental health challenges, maybe you're not talking about it, or you're even trying to mask it, or you pretend it's not there.
Right.
Performance might look okay from the surface, but it's very, very fragile. It's not sustainable over the long term, right? So if you're wanting to create longevity and sustainability in the performance of your company, building a culture that does have, people where they can speak up openly, asking for support, recovering faster from when they are, stressed out and not getting to a point of burnout, then people will stay engaged much longer. Cultures will really thrive.
Makes sense. I mean, I love that you brought that up as well, right? Because right now we know that, okay, mind you, you're more in delivering scalable health solutions. Haraya, you specialize in, deep leadership transformation. So how would you say these two sort of intersect when it comes to supporting HR leaders when they have to deal with, burnout, fatigue, and, and the workplace where it's always changing, where, new things are being implemented, AI is coming, taking away people's job, people are stressed out, all this comes into play. How would you say, would it intersect, and how would you support HR leaders when it comes to this?
Yeah, I think the beautiful marriage between Mind You and Haraya is that Mind You also takes a very data science approach, right? Because essentially the platform that we offer is collecting data, but it anonymizes all of the personal identification for anyone that's using the platform. So number one, safety is always front of mind. But what's really valuable is seeing how people interact with the support services and also complete surveys, screening and diagnostic assessment tools. That's all embedded in the system. And so what we learn there is, why are people suffering? And what are they suffering from?
Right.
Whether it's depression, anxiety, stress. Is it caused by relationships from home? Is it caused by stress in the workplace? Is it caused by a multitude of different factors? So what we do for our corporate clients is we give them psychometric reporting, which, by the way, is complicated on its own to interpret. We do the interpretation so that they can easily understand what decisions they need to make from the data.
Right.
And so not all data is created equal. That's something that I really want to educate the whole HR market towards, is you have to check if the data is verifiable. Because you're making business decisions based on the data. Is the data properly being analyzed? Is it ready for you to make decisions that's going to affect your business, right? And so when we present the psychometric data, and there are elements there that pertain to leadership gaps or stigmas being created in the management chain, that's where Haraya comes in. The transformation is based on real world evidence taken from the actual company itself. So it's not hypothetical, theoretical. You're using evidence-based programs from your own data as a company.
Right. Okay. Understand? Great. Jackie, yes, your take on this.
Yeah. So and that's the reason why I love working with Mind You. It's because the data is very robust. It's very rich. We work with a lot of leaders that are so used to looking at numbers and KPIs. And so data and accuracy and reliability of that data is very important to them, right? And so this is a new piece of data that now can inform how they decide to lead their teams, how they decide to create relevant programs. So well-being shifts from something that you do once a week through a
Team
party
dinner
or
yeah.
some kind of one-off event.
Yeah.
It then turns into, here's some information that I could use to understand what is going on with my team members and what needs do they actually have. Where are the pain points that they're facing day to day in their roles, in their jobs, in working in this company. And I can actually do something real and tangible about that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we work with leaders. We from the experience we've had, leaders know the results they need to drive. They already know the direction the company is taking. Where they struggle the most is in dealing with every person who sits on their team. How do I keep them motivated? How do I keep them engaged? How do I keep them, productive enough over the long term so that they are, one, they want to be there and they want to contribute, and they are contributing in the way that they're expected to, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree, because you sort of spend most of your time at work, and then you sort of your leaders, your team are the ones who sort of create that atmosphere for you, and how you're able to perform as well. Sort of all these added settings sort of also affects how you also react. Also, question, I know it is totally off topic, but you know how nowadays, as important as mental health is, people also sort of use it to their advantage, in the sense like they just use it as an excuse, right? When it comes to, and then that's what is affecting leaders in organization nowadays, when they be like, okay, how much do I have to trust this person, or this, what's happening here, when they actually say it's affecting their mental health. So how do you sort of, I know it's a very tough question, but like, how do you sort of draw that line to say, okay, this person is actually having some issues and we have to deal with it in a certain way. And then those that just using it, oh, I'm just taking a mental day off just for the sake of, maybe they just have to go somewhere else or do have something else on. How do you draw that distinction?
I think for me, when you look at the data, if people are already behaving in a way where they're not telling you the truth, that's already evidence that there isn't a sufficient level of psychological safety in the workplace, and there potentially is a maladaptive environment where people don't feel safe to thrive. Because if someone wants a day off and they're afraid to say, listen, I'm near burnout and I really need this day off, it must mean that there must be some stigma that's been developed by the environment. Oftentimes I see that in leadership, right? Because in leadership, there is an intergenerational communication barrier. Because most leaders are of a certain age, they're speaking to Gen Zs and millennials. There's the old belief that just work people to the grind, because that was my experience, right? Which is, as a leader, I'm going to grind it out until I die, right? But millennials or Gen Zs, they have so much access to information that informs them about their health. They want to value their health. They want to value, how they thrive in the workplace. And so these pieces of education gaps are needed by the leaders, and also the systemic psychological safety just isn't there yet, I would say. And that's just a lack of education, especially here in Asia. These mental health systems are very well adapted in some of the more developed nations, in Europe, throughout APAC, through the Americas and whatnot. And so the level of psychological safety has developed an environment where, staff can really be transparent with their leaders. And so, that really does kind of contribute to my view.
Awesome. I mean,
to you, Jackie?
Just to add to that need for education, I think one of the things that we have available through Mind You is access to diagnostic tools. So if you're a leader and you do want to understand what's happening really with your team members, we have tools available that can give you information around how they're doing. It doesn't take a whole lot. These are very simple tools that can easily be implemented. All you need to do is check in and ask your team members to go through these assessments, and you'll immediately know. They will have information. The team members will know what they're going through, rather than just having to self-diagnose themselves as well, right? And so that, I think, is a critical part of what strategies need to be embedded by leaders in their workplaces if they really want to address this, and they're unsure, right, of how they would address it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, perfect. I mean, everyone is like, okay, it's an app, right? You can just go into it and then just sort of like, okay, easy access as well. Awesome.
Super.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for HR leaders in 2026, what would you say is a critical shift that, people need to anticipate when it comes to mental health and also leadership behavior? And how can your partnership help them stay ahead with the changes?
Yeah, I think definitely one shift that we're seeing from, and these are coming from the leaders that share their stories with us, right? That the new entrants into the workplace, the younger generation of workforce, they're seeing mental health and mental well-being not as a nice to have, not as a perk. This is something that's really important to their values. It's core in their decision making. If it does the company that I'm considering joining invest in people's well-being or not? How do they show that they care about this my mental health? And that's a decision-making factor that we're seeing more and more now. Employees are leaving companies because they don't feel well taken care of, right? Yeah. So that's, I think, for any HR leader. How are you addressing that? How are you embedding strategy towards that end so that you are, better equipped to attract the talent that you'd like, to keep the talent that's already there? And then from a leadership strategy standpoint as well, how are you ensuring that your leaders are educated along the lines of mental well-being? Are they equipped to have the right kind of conversations, or are they just used to having performance conversations that talk about KRAs and KPIs, right? So that has to be balanced with having conversations about how people are doing, how to check in, what signs do you look for when it comes to noticing burnout or more mental well-being needs.
Okay, Yuri, would you like to add anything?
For me, this is great. Like me and Jackie is like the North Pole and the South Pole. I think we complement each other very well. I'm a legal guy. I'm a business guy, so I don't like to lose sight of the cost. What's it going to do to my bottom line, right? So when I think of transformation on the HR level, there is an archaic understanding of metrics in HR, right? If HR wants to really transform, they need to extend their metrics towards key areas that they're not seeing losses in.
Right.
This is a loss in time, absenteeism, attrition, and they think, they just don't like the job, or they're just not skilled enough for the job. I'm just like, hang on a second. If absenteeism and attrition is being caused by burnout, anxiety, depression, mental health factors, you can easily invest $1 towards the health support for that staff member and get a return on time not lost, right? So that's time lost. The second is productivity loss. There's a term called presenteeism. Presenteeism is showing up to work. You're coming to work, but you're cognitively impaired.
Yeah.
You're not even working. Why? Because you're recovering from some mental anguish or distress that either come from your personal life or more prevalent, coming from work itself. And so this is burnout. This is presenteeism. People at work, but actually not productive. And so they're not seeing that money loss. I'm a business guy, right? You got to look at those losses, which for the longest time, most of the developed nations, Europe, APAC, Americas, they're using these metrics, but we are way behind in Asia. And so once the HR dashboard starts to be modernized, you look at well-being as a business driver. Hello, you look at your OPEX, you look at your P&L every year. What's your largest spend? It's your human beings.
Yep.
And you're not taking care of the productivity and thriving of your people culture. That's where it starts to get real, right? So transformation's got to be on that level. It's got to be on the real, and there needs to be an updating of the management software that's sitting in, the HR level, and even I would say the executive and board level as well.
Okay. Awesome. That makes a lot of sense, being present at work, but not being present at all. That I think that's one of the main things we sort of see, especially in Asia. That's basically what most of us see, right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to head to the last question for, so what practical steps can organization take today to integrate both mental wellness and also leadership development into the core HR strategy? And how can Mind You and also Haraya sort of, work together to help make these efforts sustainable as well?
Okay, maybe I'll start here. One, I think companies need to normalize support early. Don't wait until people feel burnt out to provide the support that they need. Get ahead of it, right? Get data and use that data to help build preventive care in your workplaces. The second is, don't just rely on HR to do these things for the whole organization. Equip leaders, have them learn how to use that data and how to have the conversations that are necessary in the workplace to have well-being embedded, and then integrate that data with dialogue. Have conversations that allow people to feel like they can talk about what they're going through, have them express what boundaries they require so that it supports their well-being and really have much more sustainable levels of performance.
Okay, understand. Yuri, anything to add?
For me, I'll stay in practical land, which is, I'll tell you what I see. I see businesses in the Philippines that have your standard minimum HMO or EAP. Most of that is just physical health, all your doctor's services. And they've gone ahead and say, oh, you have like a few mental health counseling services added to that. And so they think that's your mental health tick. But that's not sustainable. So for actually all of our clients have HMO and EAP. They've sequenced, they've added Mind You into that stack because it adds that additional productivity boost. It adds that psychological safety. We're already HIPAA compliant. We're compliant with NPC. We're SDG 3 and SDG 9 aligned in terms of the technology stack that we have, right? So it's an easy marriage. If you're really looking for something that's mental well-being, connected as a service and works in a system, Mind You's an easy fix for that, because you don't have to go to another vendor to get your coaching. You can get your therapy, your psychology counseling, and your coaching all in the one spot. And all of our clients have HMO and EAP anyway. So that's where you get your visits to your doctor taken care of and whatnot. So from a systemic standpoint, I think the easy way is to go with a partner that has really great reporting, is committed to data privacy and confidentiality, and has a human-centered approach with the culture building.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to check. When you mentioned you also have, doctor visits also included in that. What kind of doctor visits are we talking about here? How is that sort of? No.
No, so I'm referring to clients that already have HMO.
All right.
Or an EAP.
Okay, so it's sort of okay.
So for them, we're a great complement to that, because most of the EAPs and HMOs in the Philippines will only throw in a few counseling sessions just to tick the mental health box. But that's not data. That's not going to tackle your productivity losses. right? So really modernizing the HR metrics requires a systemic approach, which is what MindU provides.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. I mean, perfect. I think just speaking with both Yuri and Jackie today, I see how, this ecosystem has been created when it comes to practicality, the data part of it, the human touch part of it as well, and also the bigger picture of where management needs to come into play. Your CHRs needs to buy into the idea and like sort of implement it, not just your vision, your mission, but sort of from the ground as well. So I really love the conversation, and I think this is something that a lot of organizations, especially in Asia, are sort of trying, but they don't know where and how to go about it, because not many people can give them that advice, right? Especially when it comes to this, like, you're losing a lot of retention when it comes to your employees and all that. So love it. I can't wait to see how you take this on stage when it comes to our event on the 22nd of January. So thank you, Yuri and Jackie, for sharing such insightful insights on building resilient leaders and healthier workplaces, something that we very much need nowadays, very much important. So your perspective clearly highlights how mental well-being and leadership development must work hand in hand together for the future of work. So also want to share that, MindU and Haraya Coaching are our gold sponsors at the CHRO and HR Leaders Summit Philippines 2026. This is their second year with us. I also would like to say, if you'd like to continue the conversation, we encourage you to meet them, at the summit itself, where they'll be sharing more about their partnership, how they support organizations, and how, building sustainable and also people-centered strategies. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and we look forward to seeing you at the summit. Thanks, Yuri. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.